U.S. weapons manufacturer Lockheed Martin is reportedly pitching new jobs for Canada. But that offer depends on Ottawa sticking to its plan to buy Lockheed's F-35 fighter jets. So last week, Prime Minister Mark Carney ordered a review of Canada's contract to buy 88 F-35 fighter jets as he looks to build new security relationships that are outside of our relationship with the U.S. A source is telling the Globe and Mail that Lockheed Martin is pledging to create jobs that'll stay here in Canada, but only if that review is called off. So for more on our country's options this morning, we're joined from Ottawa by David Perry. He's the president of the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. Welcome to your morning.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, let's set this up for everybody. Canada has the option to look for alternative suppliers after the first 16 of the 88 ordered F-35 jets are delivered. So on Monday, Prime Minister Mark Carney said that it is prudent and in the best interest of Canada to take a second look at this contract.
Canada's defense plans have now hit a major wall. Carney is pushing for a major political win for him, suggested moving away from the U.S. F-35 program, hinting at European alternatives like the Eurofighter and Saab Gripen. Headlines painted a major confrontation, with Donald Trump portraying a U.S. president, slamming the door on Canada's ambitions. Behind the scenes, however, the reality is very different. The Pentagon in Washington, D.C. maintain control over the systems and technology that the supply chains of Canada depend on, right? So what appeared as a bold move for independence quickly is now exposed because the country is dealing with delays, rising costs, and a military left increasingly vulnerable. That is a terrible position if you're a nation. Carney framed his push as a statement of Canadian independence. By exploring European jets, he argued that Canada would not be tied up by U.S. defense programs or subject to political pressure, and that sounds inspiring. It plays well to domestic audiences. It projects him as a leader willing to challenge a more powerful negotiator, a more powerful nation in the name of national interests. Headlines, meanwhile, emphasized confrontation, painting Trump as enraged and using the drama of the moment. In reality, the optics, the story behind everything was way more strategic, with each side quietly assessing leverage costs and political risk before making a move.
I'm announcing today that Canada will achieve NATO's 2% of GDP target this year, half a decade ahead of schedule. And we will further accelerate our investments in years to come, consistent with meeting these new security imperatives. Our plan will help ensure that Canada is strong at home and reliable abroad. We will ensure that every dollar is invested wisely, including by prioritizing made-in-Canada manufacturing and supply chains. We should no longer send 3/4 of our defense capital spending to America. We will invest in new submarines, aircraft, ships, armed vehicles, and artillery, as well as new radar, drones, and sensors to monitor the seafloor and the Arctic.
Behind Carney's public statements was a detailed plan. Europe, with programs like the Eurofighter and the other one, it appears to be ready to offer alternatives. Canada pointed to deals like Portugal's Gripen purchase to show there were other options besides the U.S., and Carney's team believed these moves could give him a political win at home and show Washington that Canada could act on its own. Well, it's a plan, but this plan has risks. Using European fighter jets means changing how maintenance is done, training pilots in new systems, and updating technical support, things Canada's defense industry has very little experience with. Even as media coverage made it look like a bold move, the plan was already showing weakness. You see, Europe looks like a ready solution at first. Carney and his team used this opportunity to point to Europe and their fighter jets as a way to move Canada from the U.S. F-35 program. On paper, it's, okay, cool, sure, let's try it.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over. I reject any attempts to weaken Canada, to wear us down, to break us so that America can own us. That will never happen. And our response to these latest tariffs is to fight, is to protect, and to build. We won't back down. We will respond forcefully. Nothing is off the table to defend our workers and our country. What exactly the United States does next is unclear. What is clear is that we, as Canadians, have agency. We have power. We are masters in our own home. We can control our destiny. We can give ourselves much more than any foreign government, including the United States, can ever take away.
You see, European suppliers had experience building jets, and other countries were already buying them. The promise of choice and independence made it easy for Carney to sell the idea at home, and media coverage painted the move as a bold challenge to Washington. But as you just saw, reality is very different. It's way more complicated. Production delays in Europe slowed delivery schedules, and the Canadian defense industry is not fully prepared to handle new aircraft systems. Maintenance, training, and integration posing very serious challenges that were not easily fixed. It's not an easy thing. Even as Carney is highlighting the potential of European jets, behind the scenes, officials in Europe quietly are admitting that without U.S. systems, Canada would face serious setbacks. So, what looked like a clear path to independence is showing that it's actually very complicated and looks like a bad plan, really. Because it's putting Canada in a very difficult position between promises from Europe and control still held by Washington. And behind all the headlines, the United States is holding all the cards, and Carney is publicly talking about European alternatives. The Pentagon is quietly reminded Canada who really controls the systems that kept its military running. Intelligence, maintenance chains, and key technologies are all tied to the US F-35 program, and without access to the systems, any European jet would face serious limitations. Even if Canada bought new aircrafts, they couldn't easily plug them into existing networks or maintain them at full readiness. The warnings is clear. US officials signaled that hedging bets with Europe could cost Canada priority access to F-35 technology, the very systems that kept its Air Force capable. European suppliers are quietly admitting the same thing. Yeah, promises sound nice on paper, but without U.S. cooperation, Canada would be a sitting duck, left on the sidelines and vulnerable. Carney's plans, once seen as a bold move, is now looking like, ooh, this is super risky, and at best, or depending on your point of view, worst case, it was just a political stunt. And now you've presented Canada with a real possibility of isolation, militarily speaking. You're stuck between Europe that cannot fully deliver and a United States that's not thrilled that you're thinking about leaving the US F-35 program. The US is holding the keys to advanced military power. Canada needs that to stay protected. And at the same time, Trump is remaining in control of the narrative. While media stories are framing him as slamming the doors in anger, the reality is that the US could sell fighter jets globally without needing Canada's business. By holding the leverage quietly, Trump and the Pentagon is forcing Canada into a corner without a single public confrontation. They don't need to. The headlines may have screamed conflict. Behind the scenes, the outcome is already shaping up. Carney's dream of a political win is slipping away very quickly, and the fallout came quickly too. With US support in question and European timelines slipping, Canada's purchase plans are beginning to fall apart.
Shamefully, Canada announced in the last few days, or the last couple of days, that they won't be ponying up. They're not going to do their 2%. Why? Well, talk about riding on America's coattails. They have the safety and security of being on our border and not having to worry about that. I think that's shameful. I think if you're going to be a member nation and participant, you need to do your part. Some have a greater sense of urgency about that, clearly, because the threat is at their own back door. But here's the reality. If we don't stop it there, it will come here.
Costs went up as officials tried to adjust contracts and prepare for the extra work of bringing in foreign systems. What was sold as a $20 billion step forward is, in a move of strength, is looking more like, this political move is just looking like a money pit. And it's just going to ruin them. Deadlines are stretching further into the future, and instead of getting new aircrafts, Canada is facing the reality of keeping its old fleet in the air far longer than planned, and the defense industry at home is feeling the impact right away. Maintenance crews are struggling to keep aging jets flying, and companies that had expected steady work through U.S. supply chains are now suddenly left uncertain. Jobs tied to aerospace contracts were at risk. Unions are warning that whole communities could feel the hit. And for Carney, what began as, we're going to pick the Eurofighter, we're going to pick this other one, we're going to do all these things, we're going to stand up to America. Well, this really expensive move is looking like an absolute, just terrible decision. The promise to defend Canadian interests using European fighters is not turning out well. The military is under strain, industry jobs are uncertain, and billions of dollars are now locked up in projects with no clear delivery date. The public reaction is split down the middle. Some are like, okay, yay, good on you, Carney, for standing up to Washington. Some are saying Canada needed to show independence, and others are looking at the risks and going, I see a country that is now left without the tools of defense of its skies or meet NATO obligations, so for allies abroad, the picture is raising doubts as well. Canada, once viewed as a steady partner, now seems stuck, unable to move forward with Europe and cut off from priority access in Washington. So, Canada can't give oil to anybody, at least all that quickly, and now they can't do anything militarily-wise. That's terrible. Like, was supposed to be a show of strength, and now it's turning into a picture of terrible weakness that Carney is exposed, and Canada's military is facing real vulnerabilities. Carney soon is finding himself very isolated. Like, in Europe, suppliers that once looked eager are beginning to back out of their promises. Production delays are growing. There's quiet warnings that are being made pretty clear that without U.S. cooperation, Canada is not going to get the full capability it needs. And at the same time, Washington is pulling back. The Pentagon hinted that Canada would no longer get first access to key F-35 technology if it keeps pushing for outside deals. Trump, on the other hand, is controlling the message, while news outlets are painting him as slamming the door. That's not true. Like, to his audience, Canada is not a trusted ally, standing up for itself, but like a country that's walking away from decades of defense partnership. Trump is pointing out that the United States could sell fighter jets anywhere in the world with or without Canadian orders. Carney's move, once thought to be bold, is now looking reckless because in his attempt to secure political win is now backfiring horribly. Like, it's leaving Canada with fewer friends and rising costs and a military that is weaker than ever before and not really that close to modernization. So instead of gaining options, Carney's plan is leaving Canada squeezed between two sides. You got Europe that can't deliver anything right away, and the US no longer willing to help them out, as before. And that's all that I have for you today, guys. From us here at the Zone Media Network, I'm Griffin, your host. Feel free to head on over to American Zone for all the latest American news, where you will see me there also at times. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below, as it does help us out a lot. I love you all, guys, and I will see you in the next one.